So, good morning, you guys. I want to mention that this is a review for Demon Slayer, the movie. And I did a review a few days ago, but I decided to watch the film like one more time, and I'm going to watch it like a third time, maybe like a third review. And I actually enjoyed the film a lot more, and I actually felt that there was something really good about this film that inspired me to rewatch it. There are strengths and weaknesses to this movie. I've mentioned before that, you look at the music, the animation, the intensity of this film, and it makes you really just, wanting to see it through. And then the other part of it is that I believe that this is supposed to be the fifth season and final season of Demon Slayer. They're telling it in like three movies, so sometimes it's good. I respect people who do things like they do things in experimental ways. Like, okay, well, instead of The Sopranos having a final season, hypothetically, what if they made that into like a Godfather Part 1, Part 2, Part 3 type of movie? That would be really interesting. So I like experimentations. And then the other thing about the film is that it's very long and daunting. So it makes you feel like you're in the Infinity Castle, because sometimes really great art makes you feel like you're on that journey. Like, for example, you watch Lawrence of Arabia, like those wide angle shots of the desert makes it feel like you're in the desert, and how like in this epic scale that Lawrence has to go through, or in Lord of the Rings, just all that just like all those places that they go through, and all like those different creatures they encounter, and all those armies. It makes it feel like they have to go through one hell of a quest, really. Or another example was that I was watching the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, like how with the cinematography you see like this you see like Texas all like nice and beautiful, and then when they get to the Sawyer family, it's just closed in dark confined spaces, really ugly colors, and there's a lot of chainsaw sounds to give you the sense of going from heaven to hell, really. So this film does a great job at making you feel like what, you are in a long epic battle, you are in a long endless situation, and that ultimately for all these characters, this is almost like the final boss in a video game. This is almost like the home stretch for them. Like, this means everything to them to just end their fight with Muzan, if I'm saying his name correctly. Like, this does feel like the they want their ending, really. And the series is like around 70 episodes, 68 or 70 episodes. So this does feel like what, let's get to the fucking ending. Let's end this shit. And I will also mention that Demon Slayer is about this character named Tanjiro. So what happens in the first episode, and I'll mention that I actually watched the first episode on my birthday when I took a trip to Honolulu, Hawaii, like when I was visiting all 50 states. So one of the reasons why I do interesting things on my birthday is just to remember. After that, I went to Pearl Harbor. I do want to mention before I get into it is that I don't really watch Demon Slayer. I wasn't sure how long the series was, but then I saw it's like 68 episodes, so I don't mind giving it a shot, really. The thing is, I'm a very busy man. I work like 80-hour weeks, so it's like, how do you analyze and process an anime when when you're working like that many hours, really? Like, I'm trying to watch the Japanese anime noir and review and analyze every episode, but it seems like every episode I analyze, it's like it takes 3 or 4 months really to upload a video, because I'm so fucking busy with work and responsibilities. But I'm not really a fan of long animes like Naruto or things like that, because you have to commit for a couple of years. But seeing that Demon Slayer is about 70 episodes, why the fuck not? Maybe I can watch and review all the episodes for you guys and tell you guys how I feel, like an episode a week. That would kind of give you guys enough time until the next movie comes out in like 2 years. I'm just fucking with you guys. But that's my introduction to Demon Slayer, and the fact of how I arrived at this anime. I think the first episodes are emotional and powerful, and we feel for Tanjiro. So a little bit about Demon Slayer is that what happens in this world is that there are people who live ordinary lives, nothing goes wrong, and it looks like it takes place in like feudal Japan, because a lot of the characters are dressed like they're from like the Edo period, or the I think Tokugawa period, or if I'm correct, that's the samurai period from like I think from the 1500s all the way to the 1800s when the Edo period started, if I'm correct. I'm getting a little older, but so I may be a little. Yeah, so some things I may get some things a little wrong, really, but you open with like Tanjiro in the first episode, and what happens? He's living an ordinary life. He's doing chores with his family, and then he goes back home. He finds out that his family is killed by demons, except for his sister. He gets his sister out of there. He doesn't realize that his sister got bit by a demon, and his sister is special because she's the only demon that can be around during sunlight, really, and she's almost like a hybrid, like half demon, half person, really, like so she has immunity to sunlight, unlike other demons. She has a sense of humanity, like she loves her older brother Mezuku, if I'm saying her name right. She loves her older brother, so she is willing to protect him and die for him in the first episode. So it kind of is clear to all the other demon slayers who are killing demons and run into them that that she's special in a certain way, but also too that she's not a blind killer like most demons. And they recruit Tanjiro, and they talk to Tanjiro, and they're like, hey, you know what? You want to avenge your family, you want to make the world a better place. And then he just goes through a journey becoming a really great demon slayer and on a bunch of missions. It's almost very similar to Naruto, where, Naruto starts with like these ninjas who don't have a lot of powers, but over time they grow their powers by all the missions and the journey. It's very similar to that. It's also similar to Bleach the same way, where they grow in quantums, or in Dragon Ball Z, same idea. Like Goku had some abilities in the first episode, but now he's like Super Saiyan God or Super Saiyan Blue or whatever, where he can like has the power to blow up universes and whatever, really. Just like characters growing in quantums of power, really. And I think like what draws a lot of people is to the music, the characters, the emotions. Also, this is an R-rated movie, so a lot of people don't like these kiddie type of films. A lot of people want more unapologetic, really. So it's a good thing to see an R-rated anime film, and that's good because it's just like when Deadpool was rated R. That was one of the draws, because people were like, okay, it's not just PG or PG-13 kiddie crap. It can be for adults, really. So it's definitely very, very good that it's successful in saying, hey, the anime can be in the cultural zeitgeist. Anime is getting people into theaters. Anime is not something that, somebody buys a DVD from Japan, they show their friends in the basement. It's actually something that can make millions of dollars in theaters. It made $471 million so far, which is billions upon billions of Japanese yen, if I'm correct. I'm not sure. I don't know the conversion, really, but that's that's probably like 3 or 4 billion yen, which is good, which is a lot, really. And then you never know, it could be nominated for best animation at the Oscars. It probably won't happen because the Oscars are a bunch of uptight people. So that's why Howl's Moving Castle won. Part of the other appeal, I think it was like Spirit Aware, Howl's Moving Castle. They won Oscars, but Hollywood is uptight, really. Like Akira came out the same year as The Little Mermaid, but there's a lot of people who got mad that The Little Mermaid won an Oscar. Akira was never acknowledged, and Akira is considered one of the greatest anime films of all time, or the greatest one because it broke so many boundaries. But just because somebody breaks boundaries doesn't necessarily mean they win awards. Like 2001: A Space Odyssey, Kubrick won special effects, but he should have won like so many more awards. So I just I'm happy to give you a bit of an overview. Now I'm going to talk more about the movie and the analysis. So the Demon Slayers are sent to the Infinity Castle, which is an Edo period looking castle, and the castle stretches for infinity. And their goal is to find Muzan, who is like the king or the first demon. Like, it's almost very similar to a lot of vampire hunter stories where somebody needs to kill the head vampire to get out of the vampire's castle. It destroys the castle, it releases everybody, and then also once you kill the head demon, which is Muzan, then all the other demons like fall apart, really. So get destroyed as well, really. So it's almost like all the demons are connected to him, really. So I'm looking at my notes. So as the Demon Slayer members are split apart because they entered this Infinity Castle dimension. They're all in different areas. Some of them are in two-person groups. They run through the Infinity Castle, and they run into demons and then they fight them, or they're ambushed by demons. This is very similar to Bruce Lee's Enter the Dragon, because if you remember that film, Bruce Lee had to go from room to room to room and fight different, like, martial artists. And then the other part of it is that reminds me of Rurouni Kenshin, when Kenshin fought Lord Shishio, where, he and his friends had to go from room to room to room and fight different people. And sometimes it was Saito versus Aoshi Shinomori, if I'm saying it correctly, and Sanosuke Cigar versus Monk Anju, if I'm saying thing correctly, like, a martial artist person. Or it also reminds me of Yu Yu Hakusho, because there was an episode where he and his friends went to a castle and they fought different demons, but it seemed like all of his friends were like, okay, we're going to do a one-on-one type of thing. And also, if you guys played Pokemon, the Elite Four was inspired by Enter the Dragon in a way, because the whole Pokemon League is inspired by Enter the Dragon, with how your character has to fight four members and then the champion. So they've kind of so this kind of, like, person going to a castle or on a journey to fight multiple villains, that's been popularized through Bruce Lee Enter the Dragon, but I'm very sure that there's other films before then that inspired that. The first battle is Shinobu Shinobu Kochu versus Doma. And pardon me that the names are Japanese, so I get that mixed up. So about Kocho, if I'm saying her name correctly, she has her when she does her when she does her, like, sword fights, she has the ability to use, like, magic, and it's almost like a lot of her magic is inspired by insects. And when you look at her face, she has, like, her eyes are very similar to butterflies, very, like, they're big, black and bold, and then she has, like, a butterfly clip in her hair, and she like wears, like, a wavy dress very similar to butterfly wings. And she fights a demon called Doma. And the reason why Kocho fights this demon is because it's revealed that this demon Doma was the one who killed her sister, so she wants to get her revenge, really. And then the other part of it is Doma is a demon, and what happens is that his parents looked at his eyes when he was a kid, and his eyes had, like, rainbow, like, he has a rainbow iris. His iris is very similar to rainbow. And a lot of people thought that he was like a Buddha, or like he was like a prophet, really. So a lot of human beings, approached him and prayed to him and thought that he was a god, and asked him for, like, help during sick times and whatever, really. And they felt like no matter what he did, even if he grabbed their hands or put his hand on their cheek, like a deity or a holy figure would do, they thought that they were blessed by God, really. So he felt that it was really sad that human beings were blindly following religion, and also human beings were believing in him when that's completely foolish. Like, it's almost like, he feels like, it's like believing in a scam, or it's just like not seeing past, not accepting reality, which is, it's just all human beings die. And that's the end of it. Whether you believe in religion or not, or you have a lot of spiritual beliefs, all human beings die, really. You can believe in a god or have a spiritual belief, but everybody has the same outcome. Like, death is God in a way, really, because everybody dies. So I think he convoluted beliefs in his head, really. Like, he went from, feeling sorry for human beings and saying that maybe if he eats human beings, they live forever in his body, really. So that's kind of like where he justifies, eating and consuming people and killing people, because he feels like he's releasing them from their suffering because they want to live. And he may think that means live to the, he may forget that might mean live to the next day, or live without fear, or survive a situation. Like, he kills he kills a young girl in this one, and a young human girl in this one. Like, she probably wants to live the rest of her life without fear, or being consumed by him. But he doesn't see it as, well, he doesn't see it as she's saying she lives forever. It's just, he just kills for the sake of, accept reality. People don't live forever. So, or if you want to live forever, live inside me by me consuming me. And that's almost very opposite of the blood of Christ, really, where people drink wine to celebrate the blood of Christ. Or in some religions, people eat pieces of the dead to gain their energy, really. So it's almost like that in reverse, in a way. And Kocho and Doma fight because Doma killed her older sister. So this is ultimately revenge for her, and there are some spoilers in this that the fight sequences are really great. I really like the flashbacks of Kocho's past and her bond with her sister. Like this is the best fight. It had the most emotional power in this, and I also like that it wasn't as long, like the last battle really. And then also this was at the beginning really, so this was kind of like a really good like emotional an epic fight sequence. Like I was trying to like this to start to start this. You had to start with something strong, and they did start with strong, so it was really good. Unfortunately, Kocho is not successful. She actually dies in this part really, and it's weird because you see a clip of her inside of his body, really, so you don't know if she's actually going to get out or not. But there are a lot of people online, and it's even on like Wikipedia page that she actually does die here, and that's also good because in a lot of movies, a lot of bad animes, they usually have a lot of characters you care about surviving until the very end, really, and you have to kind of like be like, okay, there are stakes, there are people that can die. And that makes a lot of sense, really, because the problem is if you have a show where it's just the main character surviving till the end, really, it breaks reality or becomes very, very predictable. There has to be stakes. So, and then also too that Doma is the only of the three upper three in this movie that survives, really. So that's their battle. It's really good, very emotional, very powerful, and it creates this sense of sadness, really. And then the next battle is this is like the weakest one. Zenitsu versus Kaijaku. And and really like their backstory is that they were an apprentice of a martial artist that had like that taught them like how to use swordsmanship and thunder powers. So ultimately, Zenitsu wanted Kaijaku to not become a demon, to go down a good path with him as well, really. And I think Kaijaku felt like rejected and resentful, so he embraced a really bad path. So it's almost like maybe in Star Wars with Luke Skywalker, with Anakin Skywalker, where he didn't get approval to be a Jedi through Yoda, so he became Darth Vader with resentment and stuff like that. But that kind of is very, very typical in a lot of like anime as well, really, where there's a character that's resentful and then they go down a really, really bad path, really. So it's kind of very typical. I understand why they put this in the middle because this was like the shortest one. And it does a couple of things. It's a cliche to me, but also in battles, yes, you have to have quick battles because if everything is long and drawn out, it's not good. Then also this is the penultimate because the problem is if you do something where all of them are very, very long, you're not going to like the main course. If you have a really great appetizer and then you have a really great, dinner, nobody's going to stay for your world class for desserts, really. So you have to kind of make this a little short to make sure everybody enjoy the whole piece, really. So it was the weakest part because it was really, really short. The battles with them was really weak. Zenitsu, he creates this new thunder power for himself or like new ability, and he's able to defeat his opponent. Then he tells him, hey, it's not that I was taught that by our sensei, our master. It's because I learned that on my own, really. So it's almost like also about how it's not just when you feel like neglected by a master or a sensei, maybe they're trying to teach you how to grow yourself instead of them growing you. So maybe Kaijaku should have done that. He should have been like, okay, maybe Zenitsu is getting the most attention because he's younger and he's more dependent at that time, really. Where maybe I'm getting less attention because I'm more independent. So ultimately, that's probably what that is, really. But I think Zenitsu, he does feel a little hurt that Kaijaku took that path, really. So as I said, like this is kind of been highly, highly repetitive in a lot of anime, and then it's also they also cut back to Doma in this one, and what happens is Coach she has she has like this girl that is a mentor that she mentored, and what happens is that it's going to be this girl that she mentored the girl that she mentored versus Doma in like the next movie really. And then also I want to mention before I forget that if they are fighting, demons in the next, if they continue this format, there's actually 10 left really, because two of these demons die. So it's almost like, how are they going to do two more with five when you had like like close to a 3 hour movie really. So they have to be a little careful in the next movie about the pacing and just making it better really, because that's been one criticism is the pacing. But then it's almost like you have so much more story to tell really. Like, how are you going to do that and make that strong with the audience? The final battle was Tanjiro and Giyu versus Akaza, and this was like definitely I would say the more emotional one. This was also like the second best one, but it was like the hardest part of the whole movie because of how long it was. It's revealed that Akaza had a very, very complicated back past. It was actually very similar to Manga Anji and a lot of the Rurouni Kenshin villains, where they were on a really great path in their childhood, and then they went down a dark path because people in their lives kept damaging them. So Akaza, what happened was that when he was a kid, he had a father, and his father was gravely ill. So what happened was that he stole medicine to help him, and he got punished for stealing, because back then in Japan, they would either kill people or cut people's arms off, just like the Middle East or other cultures, for stealing. But what happened to him is that they showed him mercy. So they pinned him down, put their knees on his arms and on his the back of his legs, and then he was like hit with a kendo stick like over 100 times, and told after every single blow to repent for his sins, and he just he just kind of shrugged it off really. And then later on, they decided to put blue tattoos on him to symbolize that he's a criminal, like permanent tattoos. And then when his father found out, his father hung himself. And, because back in that culture, especially in Japanese culture, that was seen as a large shame, really. So what happens to Akazu in his past, is that he runs into a martial artist who was like, wow, you have some abilities you took like 100, blows and blows of a kendo stick, and you kept on going. Or, they do some sparring, and Akazu keeps getting his ass kicked, and he keeps on coming back for more and stuff like that. And this martial artist, he believes that in Akazu there's a good to him. So he kind of has Akazu take care of his daughter, nurse her back to help clean her and everything like that. The daughter falls in love with him, and they eventually are about to get married. So what happens to Akaza is that his master owns a dojo, and they get there's a well where they get water from every single day to dehydrate themselves. No, not dehydrate, but to hydrate themselves. My bad. But what happens is that it gets poisoned. So what happens is that his lover and his master, who this girl, that's her father really, they both get killed because the water is poisonous. Akaza finds out about that. He goes down like a path of darkness really. So he goes back to the village and he kills all the people who are responsible, and that's hundreds of people. That's one person. No, it's just like a few people, and then they have all their bodyguards. So he killed over 100 people. And even though he wasn't a demon at that point, people were calling him a demon. And then what happens is the head demon Muzan runs into him and forces him to drink blood to become a demon, because he was like, what, if you can do all this shit really, I definitely want you to be in my upper 12 really. It's either you do that or I kill you. So he becomes a demon that way. And then as he's fighting Tanjiro and Giyu, what happens is that he reflects on his behavior, his sins and all that, and how Tanjiro reminds him of his master, so he does have a lot of trauma response, always thinking about his past in his trauma, and then always kind of conflicted really. So it's almost just regretting his path, but also trying to face redemption really. But we see a lot of characters in Japanese anime kind of do that. Like you see that happen in Naruto a lot, where there's characters like Pain or the Swordsman of the Mist, like the first one that they fought, and a few other ones, where they regret becoming bad, really. So this is something that's been done in anime over and over. This is just another version of that. Do we feel for the character? Absolutely. But this was also, I would say, not even the second best, but the second weakest, because this was so long. The other part of it is that, this is where a lot of people are going, because it felt too long, really. And then also, if you have that going on in your movie theater, you are doing something wrong. That means the editor and whoever needs conversation, really. Like, while it's doing good box office, you need a conversation by saying that this was way too long. Like, they could have cut this down possibly like maybe 20 to 40 minutes to make a more watchable film, really. And actually, there's a lot of people who have not watched the whole fight sequence in this part, because this was, this came in late in the movie, and this was like, this was supposed to be like, your steak and lobster, your surf and turf. But a lot of people didn't get to that point because this was so later in the film. There's a lot of flashbacks, and now we got to go through one more character, and the story is something that is kind of like a trope in Japanese anime of a character who goes down a bad path, and then they have their salvation and whatever, really. So and then that's about it, and then it kind of ends with Akaza being defeated, and it's both Tanjiro and Gyu who defeat him, but he also self-destructs and destroys himself at the end, really. Hoping that in death maybe he can be forgiven or be reunited with the two people that he loves, really. Even though that's not going to happen because he sinned so many times, and they've not sinned as much, really. So that's that, really. But then it kind of leads to Tanjiro and Gyu running at the end to find the other demon slayers, and fight all the other demons, as well, really, because they have 10 more left, and then they have Muzan, and that has to be, and that's going to be and that's really going to be where it leads off, really. So I really think that, as I said, for a film, there's a couple of concerns about this. That I think number one is that they might make the sequel. The sequel's coming out in 2027, and 2029 is the last one. So it's almost like, how much is the fan base going to be invested in this, knowing it comes out every 2 years? The other part of it is that you may what's the word? There may be a diminishing return because of how long these movies are, and how, like, they come out every couple of years. And then also, you're not doing any Demon Slayer stuff on television, so people may forget about these films and be like, okay, you know what? That's too much of a stretch in time, right? It's almost like with The Godfather. Like, it was 2 years apart, that's good, but then The Godfather Part 3 was like 13, 14 years apart, so maybe a 2 year stretch might be a little too much. The other issue is the length, really. Like, you cannot be making films that are so long that people are, just falling asleep, really. Like, your main fight, this is what you want this movie to be known for. You have your main character in this, and most people just fall the fuck asleep, really. And this would not been a good idea. You could have even made the Akaza fight the second one, and then have the last one be like a quick one as well, really. Be that quick one, that quick, lightning match. And that really, so yeah, really. I think that overall it's a really good movie. But I would say that a lot of people who are not really into anime, or a lot of people who've not watched a lot of anime before, I think that you would like this a lot more, because a lot of the stories that they have is very, 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 very what's the word? Is very like, cliche or a trope in anime, which means that it's a story that's been told 1,000 times about people who develop the wrong philosophy, or people who seek redemption after becoming bad. Really, that's happened a lot in anime. So it's not really that original stories, or two people being jealous of their sensei giving one more attention, really, or revenge. Like, a lot of these characters are going through some very repetitive stories, but in the end of the day, I think that we're invested in the characters. Like, we're invested because some of these Demon Slayers do love each other. like, Tanjiro loves his sister. His sister loves him. There are people who look up to Tanjiro and see like how he's grown and changed, and he is committed. Like, he's definitely, he's gone from that Magikarp to that Gyarados. To use a Pokemon reference. He's gone from, from the one of the weakest people to the one of the strongest people. There's Coach obviously she loves her sister. Her mentor, the girl that she's mentoring loves her really. So there's a lot of like high emotions, and there's a lot of like love and care about each other. And sometimes, and I hate saying this, sometimes we wish to have that ideal family or that ideal love really. So I really think that sometimes when I was watching this film, I was like, man, I wish I had a family who loved me. I wish I had a girlfriend who loved me. I wish I had love really, because I think one of the themes of Demon Slayer is the power of love really. And also, dying for a cause, but also camaraderie, but also just, how love and pain and loss and revenge and fighting for a greater good, like defeating all evil, can be a powerful thing, really. So, like I said, I'm happy that I watched this. And as I said, like I may or may not do a second review because I kind of said everything I need to say in this one. Watch this movie one more time, really. But I think I really hit everything that I wanted to say, really. So it's a really, really great film. And everybody should definitely see this. If you really are a supporter of anime, if you really believe anime has a place in movie theaters, if you really want to show Hollywood that they don't have their audience right, like before they were just doing Disney films, put a chick in the movie, put a gay woman in the movie, and make her lame as fuck, to quote Cartman. This is a movie that says fuck you. Audience want this. Audience wants more anime in theaters, and we want more adult anime in theaters. So if you really want to make a statement and give Hollywood the middle finger, and you like anime, and you like radar anime and emotionally powerful stories, and all that really great stuff, make a statement. Go to the theaters. I may watch this like a third time, and that's that. And as a movie, because of all the emotions and the music and how it hypes you, really, the two and a half hours, close to 3 hours, it blows by really quickly, even though there are points of the movie that drag and put you to sleep, really. So I really just hope that, again, the editing needs a lot more improving. They need a lot more shortening. And they also have to understand that I really think the main fight is going to be Tanjiro versus Muzan. So it's almost like they have to make sure that that's not a fight sequence where people are falling asleep, because there are people who will not watch the movie again, really. You don't want to create this movie where it's so long, people fall asleep, and then they come back, and they're going to be like, well, I'm going to sleep through the first part, second part, I'm going to put an alarm clock or vibrating alarm, and then just and then just watch the last part. Or like, you don't want people to be like, okay, we're not going to the theaters, we're going to go to Amazon Prime, and we're going to like just, watch it in increments. That's not the way to watch a movie. The way to watch a movie is to do it all in one sitting, unless it's like War and Peace or something like that, where it's meant to be, you're supposed to get intermission, really. And I think that maybe they could have had it, if they wanted it to be this long, they could have had an intermission. But I really think that length is not always good for movies, and length has been hurting a lot of films, really. So I really think they need to focus on holding attention and making a really great movie that keeps you awake through all 2.5 hours, really. So but also when you have way too many flashbacks and you have kind of a repetitive format of battle flashbacks, battle backstory, it can feel and then also battle emotional backstory, it can feel very repetitive. And when you make that a little too repetitive, it just doesn't hold attention, really. So I really think they need to just do different types of storytelling, and other things to make sure the next two movies are bangers like this one. So definitely, I would support these films. I'm strongly considering even reviewing the episodes of Demon Slayer weekly. I need to just figure out how the fuck I'm gonna have time to do that. The next few weeks are gonna be a little bit easier for me, but then it's like a month from now, 2 months from now, what's my life gonna look like? But definitely with Demon Slayer, pardon me, it's 4:30 where I'm at, really. I'll be interested in watching the series, and maybe there's an anime that's 70 like maybe around 70, 75 episodes, fuck, why not review all of them weekly, give you guys something to look forward to until the next Demon Slayer movie comes out and stuff like that. So yeah, maybe I'll review the anime series. Just let me know if you want to do that. Like and subscribe and tell me how you feel. But ultimately, I'm happy to give you a deep analysis of this film. I'm happy to give it a second chance, really, and actually watch the movie more and get more of the story. And because the first time I fell asleep through most of it, this time I fell asleep only through maybe like 20 minutes of the Akaza and of the Akaza fight.